Big story we're breaking here on India First. India and China, their coordinated border patrolling is now on the cards. India and China will coordinate their patrolling at the disputed borders. So this is the big India-China military to military confidence building measure post the Wuhan summit. So there are 16 disputed spots that have been identified along the 4,000-kilometer long India-China border and the line of actual control. What top sources are telling India today that coordination will be the buzzword, will be the name of the game. Coordination between border patrols of India and China. There will be equal number of officers and soldiers on both sides. What we're also being told by top sources is that a hotline between the Director General of Military Operations of the Indian Army and his counterpart in the Chinese Army will now be on the cards, and this coordination is expected to reduce confrontation and tension at the line of actual control. I quickly want to cut across to India Today's defense editor Shruti Ranjan Sen, who joins us with this breaking news story. Also with me is India Today's Beijing correspondent Anand Krishnan. But Shruti, to you first, take us through the details of the new confidence building measure that's being worked out.
Well, Gaurav, to begin with, the entire idea that flows out of Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping's historic summit that we saw last week is that we need to reduce the tensions along the border. We have seen very clearly in the joint statement saying that there are going to be strategic communications issued to both the armies. Now, breaking that down, what we are being told here is that along the disputed spots, mind you, as you were saying, there were 16 disputed spots identified where India and China both claim the same territory simultaneously. Now, in these areas, how do you bring down the aggression? How do you ensure that there is no misunderstanding? One of that is coordinated patrolling, as in that you know that fair enough, we are going up to this area to patrol. The other side also knows. Now, each side needs to patrol and tick off the boxes that we have been to this area. Nothing has changed on the ground. Status quo is maintained. That is very, very necessary because a border is an unsettled border, is an undemarcated border. Now, that doesn't change. What changes is this tension, between the two sides, the mistrust between the two sides needs to be brought down. We saw a lot of acrimony. Last time we saw a lot of acrimony at the line of actual control, the confrontation, the jostling. Fortunately, since 1996, no bullets have been fired at the line of actual control, but jostling, kicking, punching, pushing, pelting, all of that will also hopefully be a thing of the past. Anant, what are your sources in Beijing telling you? Is the People's Liberation Army, is the Chinese army on board? Are the nuts and bolts being worked out?
Well, here in Beijing, officials have been not very revealing about the details, but what they have said, very interesting, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said that there was an agreement between both sides to enhance communication to maintain peace and tranquility on the border. And several experts that we spoke to here in Beijing did say that, and those that with ties to the government did say that they were, for some time now, there has been discussions and consultations underway in trying to beef up the current systems that have been in place. China as well acknowledges that one of the issues the Doklam standoff exposed was that there lack of communication on the ground. The Chinese have been maintaining, for instance, that they notified India in advance at two separate meetings of their plans to undertake construction. India, of course, said this wasn't the case. So Doklam was a very stark reminder that the current mechanisms perhaps need to be beefed up and new measures need to be taken up. So whether or not this understanding that President Xi Jinping may have green-lighted following his talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi filters down to the PLA, and whether they acquiesce to take these steps on the ground, we'll have to wait and see.
We will, and the question remains, Anand, there is a lot of skepticism in India. Can India trust China. And Shruti, if I may, what are troops on ground, commanders here, what are they telling you as far as this confidence building measure is concerned?
Well, Gaurav, it's very straight and simple. The military will have to take the directive from the political leadership. There are no two ways about it. And, you know, veterans who have been able to speak to are quite happy with this. Because, you know, it brings in a lot of more structure into the entire border guarding that happens. And why not? I mean, there has been a mistrust. There is a lot of mistrust between the two sides. You know, if you can reduce the mistrust, if you can bring more understanding between the two sides, there's nothing wrong. You're going to see the hand-in-hand exercise go through this year, which didn't happen last year. The military exercise between the two armies going through this year.
Oh, absolutely. There should be more predictability in the operations of the two armies to take the trust level higher, reduce the trust deficit. Shruti Ranjan Sen and Anand Krishnan. For the moment, gentlemen, many thanks for getting me the story. Keep tracking it. I'll come to you for more. Let's now shift focus. As images of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping were beamed worldwide, they're meeting, walking, having a cup of tea, taking a boat ride at Wuhan, there was much tension in Pakistan. Ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif blamed the Pakistani establishment for losing the diplomatic plot. The Pakistani media said China and India having better economic relations and less acrimony at the borders was clearly not good news for Pakistan.
इंडिया तो अपने मकसद को पूरा करता जा रहा है, आप क्या कर रहे हैं?
इंडिया नफरत नहीं पाला चीन के साथ, बावजूद इख्तलाफात के वो ट्रेड को आगे बढ़ा रहा है.
भारत इस वक्त चाइना से भी कंसेशन लेना चाहता है
और अमेरिका से भी कंसेशन लेना.
Pakistan is worried with the optics of the Xi-Modi meet at Wuhan in central China. Images of Chinese President Xi Jinping escorting Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the museum for a walk they took together, and the boat ride has Pakistani media and politicians deeply concerned, if not in panic. Pakistan's ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif hit out at the Pakistani state for the growing India-China proximity, saying Pakistan had learnt nothing from history. Speaking to journalists outside the accountability court in Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif said, "We've learned nothing from the past. Today, India and China are becoming friends." But it's not just the former Prime Minister. Pakistani media has spent considerable time this past week discussing the India-China relations. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's diplomatic masterstroke and Pakistan's growing isolation.
तो इंडिया तो अपने मकसद को पूरा करता जा रहा है, आप क्या कर रहे हैं? इंडिया ने आपको कहा था कि हम आपको दुनिया में आइसोलेट कर देंगे, आप दुनिया में ऑलमोस्ट आइसोलेट होते जा रहे हैं. चाइना आपका दोस्त था, जाके इंडिया के साथ मुआहदे साइन कर रहा है.
Pakistan is deeply concerned with the ever-widening gap between India and Pakistan's diplomatic and military might increasing with each passing day. The commentators have pointed out that Pakistan's diplomatic isolation is increasing and almost all of Pakistan's traditional friends are engaging even more deeply with India.
भारत के वजीर आजम का चीन का दौरा, इसकी अहमियत स्ट्रेटेजिक से ज्यादा तिजारती नोयत की है. देखिए, इंडिया नफरत नहीं पाला चीन के साथ, बावजूद इख्तलाफात के वो ट्रेड को आगे बढ़ा रहा है.
भारत इस वक्त चाइना से भी कंसेशन लेना चाहता है
और अमेरिका से भी
जिसमें सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है कि न्यूक्लियर सप्लायर ग्रुप के लिए चाइना मुखालफत ना करे, और अमेरिका से भी कंसेशन लेना ले रहा है.
The Pakistani strategic community is taking heart from the fact that before the informal summit at Wuhan, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi reached out to Islamabad and assured them that their relationship was ironclad and that it stood the test of time.
जहाँ तक पाकिस्तान का ताल्लुक है, मैं समझता हूँ इस विजिट को हम बड़ी अच्छी नज़र से देखते हैं, वेलकम करते हैं. दो बड़े मुल्क जो कि हमारे हमसाया भी हैं, रीजन में उनका एक बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट रोल भी है, तो उनके दरमियान अगर बेहतर ताल्लुकात हों, बेहतर अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो, तो इस पूरे रीजन के लिए अमन के नुक्ता निगाह से भी और इकनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट के नुक्ता निगाह से ये चीज़ें मुफीद होंगी.
However, experts in Pakistan warn there are limits to the so-called all-weather friendship withstanding global scrutiny on terror. Experts point out that China too abandoned Pakistan at the Financial Action Task Force, ensuring Pakistan was grey-listed. Pakistan also fears if China removes its objections to the blocking of sanctions against the Maulana of Terror, Masood Azhar, or India's entry to the nuclear suppliers group, then the gap between India and Pakistan will be impossible for Islamabad to bridge. With Hamza Amir in Islamabad, Bureau Report, India Today. India Today's Hamza Amir now joins me live from Islamabad for more on the story. Pakistan's ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, he appeared rather cut up with the Modi-Xi bonhomie. Why was that in your appreciation, Hamza?
Well, Gaurav, what happened this morning was that Nawaz Sharif, during his going inside the court of the Accountability Bureau, because he's actually attending his corruption cases. A journalist, local journalist, actually asked him a question regarding his views on Modi's visit to China, and he said that Pakistan and we, as I quote him, saying that we have learned nothing from the past, and today China and India are becoming friends. We need to ensure that these things are learned as a lesson for Pakistan going forward. Now, what he meant by that was very clear, that India and Pakistan have had long tensions, or long line of control in the borders, and there have been no talks on ground. But when China, wants to talk on development projects, even on anything else, even after the Doklam standoff between India and China, still they are talking and becoming friends. And not to forget, is now leaning primarily on China for its economic stability and development, and that is what concerns Pakistan. That if China actually gets inclined towards India,
yes,
and actually seen through development and economic ventures being done with India and China, then obviously Pakistan will see its distance, and that is something that Pakistan cannot afford. That is why analysts in Pakistan are actually seeing this as a big for Pakistan, that Pakistan is driven a bit too much for comfort on China, and if China backtracks, or even if it's tried to go here, then that is totally going to be hurt immensely in
Hamza,
the coming
keep
years.
tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. Many commentators in Pakistan are also saying that at the Financial Action Task Force, Pakistan was relying very heavily on China and Saudi Arabia's support. US managed to wean away Saudi Arabia. India managed to wean away China. That is also because China believes more in a transactional relationship. In turn, China got to be the vice chair of the Financial Action Task Force, and Pakistan was abandoned. Let's now shift focus. Let me take you to Jammu and Kashmir, where in a major blow to this terrorist organization called Hizbul Mujahideen in the Kashmir Valley, one of their top terrorists, Samir Bhatt, alias Samir Tiger, he was a category A++ terrorist. He was gunned down in a fierce encounter in South Kashmir's Pulwama district. Another terrorist was also gunned down hours after this tiger of terror issued a rather filmy threat to a young army major in that area. India Today's Shujaul Haq brings you this ground report. Samir Bhatt, alias Samir Tiger, was not just another terrorist gunned down in an encounter by the security forces. For the Jammu and Kashmir police and the army, his killing has much more significance. Just 12 hours before he was shot dead in a Pulwama village, the Hizbul Mujahideen category A++ terrorist had given out a Bollywood-style "Maa ka doodh" dare to an army major on social media. Samir Tiger and another local terrorist were trapped in Drabgam village just hours after his social media boast. And it was the army major he had challenged who led the operation in Pulwama. Samir Tiger was one of the most wanted terrorists in South Kashmir. He joined the Hizbul Mujahideen after being arrested in 2016 for stone pelting. In this major anti-terror operation on Monday, Tiger's associate and Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist Aqib Khan was also gunned down. The major, who was identified by his first name Rohit, was injured in the encounter along with one more Jawan. Both are recovering at hospital. The gunning down of Sameer Tiger is a big blow to Hizbul Mujahideen's nefarious designs in South Kashmir. With Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu in Delhi and Shujaul Haq in Srinagar. Bureau Report, India Today. India Today, Shujaul Haq now joins me for more on the story. Shuja, when the first image of Sameer Tiger came in public domain, came in social media, holding an American rifle, there was considerable alarm in the security forces. How were these Hizbul terrorists getting American weapons? What kind of a terrorist network did he have? Is this a blow to the Hizbul Mujahideen?
Well, certainly, Gaurav. He was a big name in the circles of Hizbul Mujahideen in South Kashmir, at least. And if you recall, he is one of those militants who belonged to the Burhan Wani group. He had a huge network of his own around South Kashmir, Pulwama, Shupian, Tral. And has been recorded, been involved into a lot of incidents, which included some of very gruesome attacks on local level leaders as well as security forces. And like you also saw one of those clips which just went viral yesterday, in which he had held one person, a local boy, allegedly being an informer of the security forces, and had threatened the army major also, who he thought was controlling those informers. And it came as a shock and a surprise to a lot of people that just a day after that viral video, he was trapped in one of the houses in the area and eventually killed by the security forces. Of course, two the army Jawans also have suffered injuries, but the security forces are saying that it was a very successful operation overall.
Okay. Overall, a very successful counter-terror operation in Kashmir. But many say that several terrorists have been eliminated. And this is a point that Mehbooba Mufti also made. Terrorists keep getting eliminated. A newer crop of terrorists comes up. So is that policy of weaning the youngsters away from the gun working or not working? Apparently, some 75-odd boys, did they finally come back?
Well, yes, Gaurav. In fact, that is the most crucial part of this entire, reality that exists on the ground today in Kashmir. If you take just last 1 month, we were given to understand that at least 16 boys have gone missing from their homes in South Kashmir and reportedly joined militant organizations. And this is something which is a huge cause of concern for almost all the agencies working on the ground. And many are also suggesting, in fact, within the police and the other networks or the army, suggesting that just the military solution perhaps is not the real solution to this problem.
Oh,
a lot
absolutely.
of political activity needs to happen as well.
Absolutely. So the security forces are gunning down the terrorist leadership so that the other boys could be weaned away from the gun. Will that actually succeed or not? We'll track that story closely. But for the moment, I want to shift focus to Afghanistan. It was a rather bloody morning in Kabul as an Islamic State terrorist detonated himself amid journalists who were covering a terror strike. 8 journalists were among 29 people killed in 2 terror strikes carried out by the Daesh or the Islamic State in Kabul. And this is very typical Pakistan ISI orchestrated terror attack in this region. The first blast happens as people rush in to either help or cover or other things. The second strike happens and that's where maximum casualties happen. Twin suicide blasts rock Kabul, targeting Kabul's high-profile and fortified Shash Darak area. Home to the US Embassy, offices of NATO and the Afghanistan intelligence services. The blast claimed by the Islamic State killed at least 29 and injured over 50. And among the dead in one of the worst terror attacks to hit the Afghan capital are 8 working journalists. The first attack took place around 8 in the morning when a motorcycle-borne suicide attacker blew himself up. Journalists rushed to cover the blast. Then another attacker, dressed as a journalist, blew himself up amidst the group of journalists covering the first attack. This is the single biggest terror toll on journalists. Those killed include AFP's camera person Shah Mari, Azadi radio journalists Mahram Durrani, Abdullah Hamangai and Sabuwoon Kakar, Mashal TV reporters Salim Talash and Ali Salimi, Tolo News camera person Yar Mohammad Tohi and One TV journalist Ghazi Rasuli.
دشمن توانست گفته میشه که در بین هنمی مطبوعات ما کامرا جای با جای کردن و خود انتحار کردن که اکثرا سبب شهادت و مجروریت ژورنالیست های عزیز ما و یک تعداد مهمتانه ما که در می بلاک‌ها زندگی داشتن و راهروایی که اینجا می رفتن البته توقف کرده بودن تا ساحه را ببینن شهید و زخمی شدن.
In 2017, 21 journalists had lost their lives in Afghanistan. The tally was 13 more than the previous year. With Pakistan-sponsored terror and Islamic State bleeding Afghanistan, journalists have been in the line of fire. Bureau Report, India Today. Stay strong, Afghanistan. This region will defeat Pakistan's state-sponsored terror. That is all I have time for on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.